All right, guys, we are here, Elevated Lifestyle Lab Podcast. Alex, your host here. We're bringing you episode 13 with a couple of my buds here, Jimmy and Paul. How we doing, boys?
Fantastic.
Doing great.
Good, guys. So I wanted to do a recap of my crazy 6-day race. So I did a podcast like 2 episodes ago. It was kind of describing what I was doing. For those of you that didn't listen, I did a 6-day, 144-hour run the week before Thanksgiving in order to raise $70,000 to feed 500,000 people. So that was the mission. I started it about 5 months ago. I've been working up and training ever since. I described kind of my reason why and everything. You can go back and listen to that podcast. But I wanted to do a recap, let you guys know how my training went. These two boys, they sponsored me. Jimmy ran the 24-hour event, and Paul was the man at crewing everything.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to thank you guys so much, because you guys
welcome.
were a huge help.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Everybody out there was super jealous that I had people helping me. They were like, man, I need a crew out here. I like your RV. I like the
setup
AC.
was sweet.
Yeah.
The setup was sweet. Yeah.
I think we're going to have like an RV road next year. It's just going to be like
I think
6
we've
RVs.
inspired some people.
Yeah, man. So I just wanted to recap everything and just kind of take it day by day as the week goes on and just kind of give everybody a glimpse into what a crazy person does for 6 days running around a half-mile loop.
Not crazy.
So first off, I started about 5 months ago. So it was about like back in June or July. I decided to do the race. So I signed up for a coaching program because although I've been doing ultra running for a couple years now, I've never actually trained for it per se. I've never went out and did like a long run or anything. It was just kind of consecutive 5 miles here, 5 miles there. So I figured for this type of race, I wanted to definitely get something under my belt that I could build off of. So I looked up a few different people. I decided to go with the Iron Cowboy team, which is James Lawrence, his pacer, Aaron Hopkins. He was the one, my coach, that helped me through this. So I want to give a shout out to him. Thanks again, Aaron. So that kind of helped me prepare for this race. So a lot went into it because, over a 6-day period, I wasn't sure of nutrition, I wasn't sure of pace, I wasn't sure of electrolytes and drinks, how my body would go through with this. So it was an interesting experience. Leading up to it, it was a lot of, it was hard with my schedule, being a dad of 2, working full time, and then trying to raise money for the event. And then trying to run a marathon before work, time got a little stretched out. But we made it work, and I felt confident going into it. So I was running, I guess my peak for my training, I got up to like peaking up to it, which was about a month before the race is when I started peaking. So it was like 50 miles one week, 60 miles the next week, 75 miles the next week, and then I started tapering down. So of course there was many more weeks of training, but it was building up, then taking some time off, building up, taking time off. So that was kind of right before it. I think what helped me a lot too is with my work, I detail cars, so I'm on my feet all the time. So I think it helped just the fact that I'm on my feet for 6 days, kind of incorporate
That's you being humble, by the way.
Yeah. So
That's not the reason you ran 6 days.
Yeah, a lot of the training definitely went into it, but I think it did help. So with that included, because your watch kind of keeps up with it, I was averaging about 100 miles a week on my feet. So I figured that was at least a good base to start with. But it's kind of funny, like with the nutrition leading up to it and training, a lot of my runs I was doing like early morning, so I would just have like snacks. So I had these, they're called like GFB snacks. They're like peanut butter balls and like chocolate almond covered balls with some like fruit. And that was good for like 5 months for my training. Like I didn't really need any meals or anything. And it's so funny because we get to the race, I had all that stuff lined up. And by day 6, all that stuff was still there. It was so weird how I felt like I just didn't want any of it. It's like, so it's just weird how that, that's why I brought so many different wide variety of things to bring. So with the nutrition, that was kind of, I was, playing guesswork with it the whole time. But I guess we'll get into that. So I just want to we'll start with Sunday. So Monday is the race day, November 16th. November 15th, me and Paul met up. We had to go pick up the RV. You guys both sponsored the RV. I really appreciate it. So we went and picked it up, and it was funny because we had to rent the generator for the RV for everything to work. And I said to myself, like my little head checklist, like, okay, so when we get the RV, I had the generator in the back of my truck. Let's plug it in, make sure it works while we're at the owner's house. But then when we got there, she had it plugged in, and for some reason, I'm like, oh, the adapter that Jimmy gave me is going to work fine. No biggie. So unhook it, take it down, all good, get to the race, set it up, plug in the generator, wah, wah, wah. Nothing was working. It was flipping the circuit breaker she gave us on the adapter. So, of course, we got down there at like 5:30. It's like an hour and 10 minutes from base camp back home. So we called Jimmy. Jimmy came to the rescue. So we had to end up getting the adapter that the owner had in order to connect it to the right way to the generator. So not a big hiccup, but it was like a little like, oh shit, did we just rent this RV and it's just going to be like a hot box here?
Yeah. And I have to give a shout out to my wife because we're at my son's tryouts, and I look at her and I say, I have to go. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I have to Uber home so I can get the truck, and I have to get a part to Alex and Paul. And she's like, if that's what you have to do, then okay, we understand. So I waved to my son, and off I went. So having her as an amazing partner, understanding that my word means something, and if I'm going to support someone and back them, that she knows that, hey, I want to be here for my son, I want to be here for my family, but I also have to support, my other family.
Sure, yeah, it was a huge sacrifice. I really appreciate it. If not, it was going to turn into a long night for us, kind of driving back and forth.
And I didn't want that in your head.
Yeah. So then we ended up meeting, getting the generator, getting it up and running. And there wasn't many people there for the night before, was there?
No.
There was just like the race director, Claire and Andre. They were there setting up. And then it was kind of quiet because it was already dark the time we got there, almost dark.
That's interesting.
And it wasn't. I think one of the reasons was because nobody was set up like you were, and that's not a bad thing. Like the prep work that went into it, and like I said, like our setup was legit. Like it made that experience, I think, a whole lot better. And I wouldn't like these guys. They showed up with a tent and a box of their food, and that was it.
That was it. Well, they didn't even come with the tent because the race director set it up, so they just came with a backpack.
There you go. Like
and a lawn chair.
Yeah, we met one guy that walked from the airport. Like he flew into town and then walked from the airport.
His story was crazy, man.
Yeah,
he flew in.
But that's the great thing about like that whole community.
Yeah.
Is that everyone takes a different approach. Like Paul and I, like we're probably the type of person that if we don't show up early to an appointment, we're late.
Yes.
So to be there the night before, I totally understood where you wanted to get your head right, get set up, know that you're approaching the day completely clear and focus on your objective, and we were able to totally help you execute that. To be able to show up day of with like Publix bags and a tent.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have done well.
Yeah,
in that condition.
No, it might have ruined my experience too, because I learned that I did the 24-hour edition last year, and I had rented the tent thinking I might use it, but it's just your basic tent on the ground with bugs and some water leaking in. So it's like 6 days of that, man. I don't know if I would come back.
Yeah, no way.
I think the prep work.
That's a good point. That's a good point because I mean, as tough as it is, and you're trying to push yourself physically and mentally. But if you don't enjoy it overall, you won't do it again.
No,
that's a good
exactly. Point. Yeah, I think the prep work went a long way too. Even with the food and the ice, and we had the ice bath, and just all of the medical supplies as far as just random Tylenol and ibuprofen and the random stuff like that. I think it went a long way. So we got everything a little set up that night, and then like we said, Israel was his name.
Israel. Yep.
I was just looking up. What's up, Israel? His was a crazy story. He flew in from DC and flew into Lauderdale, and then walked from the airport to the thing, slept on the cot, and got up and started running. Man,
and he decided like 2 days before, the night before, that he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go run this race," and he did. He was out there.
Yeah, and then he was quiet too. We never even had a conversation till like day 4 when you finally grabbed him over, like, "Come on over, dude!" And we were like playing entertainment over there for a little while. But it was he had some cool stories.
Yeah, I saw him walking around, and I could see it in his face that he was struggling, and I'm like, he's here all alone, last minute decision to run this race, and I'm like, man, this guy needs something or some sort of support, maybe some food or something. So I'm like, dude, you need anything? Like, we got so, and like he I think actually Jason asked for the coconut water, but he was like, yeah, I'd love like a rice bowl, noodle bowl or something like that from Publix. And so I looked at him. I could just sense that he needed something.
Needed some help.
Yeah.
I think his quads and hammies were just like completely locked.
Yeah.
He was hurting there for a while.
Yeah.
Well, I think we in life we can always sense when someone needs something. It's whether or not we take part,
reach out.
And I think in a tight community like that, a tribe, you take care of your own.
Yeah, for sure. And we're out there suffering too, so it's like you know how it is, especially when you're suffering the same. It's like, please come. Use whatever you want. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then so nothing big Sunday night. We ate some dinner, relaxed, got everything set up. Me and Paul. Paul stayed the night down there with me. Woke up around like 5, and then Paul slept in a little bit. I got up and just just kind of walked the track. He had a little scooter there. I went. So this year, the original course that I had ran last year, part of it was flooded out. Not that the new one was any bigger. It was actually a lot smaller. So instead of being like a .83 loop, it was down to a .52 loop, I believe. So I'm like, let me go check out the course. I grabbed a scooter, do a lap. I'm like, oh, that's it. That's the whole course. That's it. That's all I get to see. So I was just basically, just stretching and getting my mind ready for when race came. So there's 10 other ones out there, 10 others that did the 6-day portion. So kind of just fast forward through day one. So my game plan, just so everybody kind of knew, like as I was going into the event, I had this huge, a bunch of different huge goals, but my game plan was to run around like 18 to 20 hours for the day, sleep 4 to 6 hours. That was kind of roughly the game plan. Keeping it at like 11 to 12 minute mile pace, hitting in anywhere from like 70 to 80 miles a day. So that was going in with that, and realistically, I knew I hadn't put in as much training to probably hit those miles, but I also felt pretty strong during training, so why not shoot for the stars? So yeah, and so I felt really strong Monday, but it was funny. I kind of remember this distinct moment when I was passing like around 40 miles. I'm like, because all my training, the longest run I did was like a marathon. Did like a back-to-back marathon days. But when I hit like around mile 40 during that day, I can't remember what time it was. It was like later in the day. I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should have ran like a little bit longer, because it's like a different feeling. Like, you get kind of sore and getting tight, at least towards the end for when I was running the marathon. But there's a different feeling when you get to like 40, 50, 60 miles. And then that's when I start like kind of questioning my goals and my game plan, because like 40 miles in, I still felt strong. My wife came down. She brought me dinner. She was a sweetheart. Shout out to Jimena. She was so great during the week.
Yeah, absolutely.
She brought me hot meals. She brought me anything I needed. So she was a huge help. She was driving a lot of hours that week to help out, watching the kids by herself. So big shout out to her. I really appreciate that. So she came down. We had a hot dinner. So just in case anybody's curious about like kind of my meal plan, other than snacks, because I could go on a lot about kind of what I was snacking on. But as far as like main meals, my first night was like chickpea pasta with hamburger meat, like a spaghetti. The first night of the race was rice, potatoes, and hamburger meat. It was like a little crock pot mixture. So that was my big dinner. And then, so then when my son was there, he ran a few laps with me, which you always get kind of like, it's like a special moment, at least day one. Like day 4, it's like it's like annoying, which we'll get to that, because when your kids came, I like canceled my wife from bringing the kids, because I was like, no, I'm too deep in this. I can't be a dad right now. Yeah. But so I enjoyed the most when he was there for day 1. So we ran a few laps, kind of got emotional. I was like, this is awesome. Trying to just talk to him, and he's 5, so just trying to share the experience with him. So they took off. And I was trying to hold off on taking like any ibuprofen or Tylenol or caffeine until kind of like I needed it. So I think after dinner they left, popped a few, and kept hammering until like, I would say it was like maybe 11 or 12 at night. So I'd been running for like 15 hours. I was like 55 miles deep or something. And I remember I was like running, walking, and the guy named Todd, he came up, stopped beside me. So day 1, everybody wasn't so talkative. Like it was more like everybody was focused, everybody was running, which is fine. Everybody's kind of doing their thing, feeling it out, But by the end of the week, we're all just kind of like walking as a mob. So that was kind of like the first person I started talking to was Todd. So he was telling me about his experience. That was his 4th 6-day run. So we were talking. He was telling me about his first one, about how he like blew his load day 1, and it kind of ruined his week for the rest of the week. Yeah. So he had ran like 80-something miles, and then he was just telling me about his whole experience. So that, that mixed in with the feeling I felt at about 55, 60 miles, and it was already getting late. I kind of started questioning, is it the best idea to shoot for like 85 miles tonight and like just really blow out my legs? Although I wasn't like completely sore or completely like exhausted, but I did have 5 more days of hell coming. So that's when I think I came into you, and I was like, I started like slowing it down. I kind of re-geared myself. I'm like, okay, so I ended up getting like 64 miles, I think, by like 1 a.m. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just shut it down, because I noticed myself. I was walking, and at that point, instead of like being able to run consistently, I was kind of like almost hobbling a little bit. So I'm like, why am I out here gonna like hobble for the night 1 just to get a few extra miles?
So that was night one.
That was night one.
So,
So, yeah,
64, 68.
yeah. So
night one.
I broke it into like 24-hour blocks. So for day one, it started at 9 a.m. I turned it off at 1 a.m. and I got like 3 or 4 hours sleep. So I was looking back at the result sheet because it'll show you each lap and how long you stopped and your break, so I could kind of figure out what happened. So I took like 5 hours off the clock that night. So I got back up on the track at like 5 or 6. So for that block, I still had like 3 hours left. So I ended up walking from like 6 a.m. to like 9 and got like 71 miles for that 24-hour first block. So day one was good. You know, the first night I didn't sleep that good. I slept for like 3 hours. And I remember,
do you normally sleep well, or is it?
I normally sleep like a rock.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
like a big time rock. So let me rewind a little bit. So 1 a.m., we had the big ice bath set up. So that was the first time.
I saw that. That was an awesome video.
So my buddy George, shout out to George, he let me use this huge, ginormous 240
you.
quart. Yeah, we missed you out there. We had this huge cooler packed full of ice. I had it for my ice bath out there just to help with the inflammation and stuff. So around like 1:30 that night, I did the cold bath and did the hot shower. And it was funny because I was thinking about it like normally, because it was like almost all ice with just a little bit of water.
Yeah.
And I think my body was kind of laughing at me because I thought it was going to like take my breath away, and I mean, I didn't stay in there super long, but I think my body was like, dude, you just ran 70 miles. This little cold water is not going to do much right now. Like it helped, but at the same time I wasn't like dead shock either. So it did help. Didn't sleep that good. A couple hours sleep, I felt kind of like just restless, but I couldn't stay sleeping, so I'm like, that's when I decided to walk. So I decided to walk until that 24-hour block kind of ended up, or wrapped up, I should say. And then I was looking back just because I was a little hazy on what I did for Tuesday morning, but it was just kind of from there on for the rest of the week, it was kind of just mixing of running and walking, running and walking, running and walking. And then Tuesday, I was looking, I almost walked for like the first like 7 hours of the day.
But see, I think that's important because a lot of people ask, they're like, so what is the mix? You have to run the whole time. And the whole focus is just staying on the track.
Yeah.
Just keep
Keep
pushing.
moving.
Just same thing with life. It's just like, stay in your lane. Keep pushing, keep pushing. You don't want to be, off the side for too long, and then just keep moving forward.
Yeah, just keep it trucking.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I was just doing that. So I remember, I was like I think it started. So that block started at 9. So around like 3 or 4, my wife came down again, ended up eating, and then when they left again, that's when I took some more Tylenol, ibuprofen, which that stuff works wonders, man. I try not to abuse it when you're out there effing up your body, but it really does, cut down on the inflammation and help with the pain. So then I pounded out, I think the second day was like 34, 35 miles is roughly. So from there on for the rest of the week, just in case people are interested as far as like my sleep schedule, day one, I went to bed at like 1, woke up at 5. The rest of the week, it was kind of around like 10 o'clock is when I just kind of shut it down, but still looking at it as like a 24-hour block. So I'd shut it down around 10, asleep by 11, up by like 4 or 5, and then I would still have like 4 hours of that 24-hour block left over. So it was interesting to think of it that way, just because in my mind I was thinking I go to sleep, I wake up, and it starts the new day, obviously, because that's what you would think. But if you're looking at it as the time thing, it was just a way to break it down in my head to mentally kind of get through it. So then at that point, nobody was there. So Paul had to go back to work. Jimmy wasn't there yet.
Well, I had a cold.
Yeah. We didn't want you to come down.
And you were very diplomatic in how you said, "Stay the hell home."
Yeah,
Which I
if you got
appreciate.
any
I
sniffles,
I got the
just
message.
stay away.
Even Paul stayed on the other side of the truck.
Yeah, even when you got
passing,
the adapter, I text him, I'm like, stay away.
Yeah.
Keep your distance, man. Keep your distance.
Which, hey, I mean, I get it.
Yeah, sure. It's the last thing we need is that in the middle
Well,
of
it's
the
not
race.
just you, and you were actually very compassionate to the other racers too,
Yeah.
because it wasn't just you that was out there. There's a lot of people that are, they've been training for a whole year. Like you said, you've got a family. I mean, your wife's amazing. You've got kids you want to be around, and you're taking time away from your family to train for this.
Sure.
You don't want something like that to sideline you.
Jack me up, yeah. So Tuesday wrapped, same thing, ice bath, slept really good that night. I felt really fresh after Tuesday. I got like 6 hours of sleep, I believe. So I woke up Wednesday morning feeling really refreshed. But Wednesday was primarily almost like an all walking day, because I was looking at it for the long term. I'm like, I'm not even halfway through. I'm feeling pretty beat up by this point. I was like 115 miles in at that point. And I'm like, let me just try to walk for until I just feel like I could run. Because I remember trying to run a little bit, and I'm like, oh man, my hips and my calves, everything was just really jacked up. More of just sore, my hip, of course, and then my calves and shin splints, they were just really effing me up. So now, hindsight, I don't think I've talked to you this about, well, I think I mentioned to you mid-race, but the timing chip. So they give you a timing chip, of course, to keep track of you as you do loop by loop. So the year before and the other races that I've done, I guess the last time I put a sock around my ankle and then just put like some athletic tape just gently across it and then wrap the strap around, because dirt will get in there and it'll give you a rash. So this year I just used athletic tape, and I just taped it up, put tape around my ankle where it would go around, and put it on, not thinking anything about it. So I did it on my right ankle the first night, left ankle the second night, and both nights after I got done on the second night, I realized I wasn't like flexing my calf to put the tape on, and I realized I was probably like fucking up my muscles and my whole movement, because it was, hindsight looking at my ankle, you as you're running is trying to flex and have room, and I had tape there, and it made these weird, crazy blisters on the back of my where my Achilles is. It looked almost like poison ivy. It was really weird.
Yeah, it was gnarly.
Yeah, it was like super weird, but it didn't hurt. But I think that kind of jacked up some of my calves and a little bit of my issues. Like hindsight, looking back, I'm like, yeah, it took me like 48 hours, 2 jacked up calves, and then I finally just put it on my shoelace. I'm like, I should have just done that from Jump Street.
Yeah, totally. So
then Wednesday, walked most of the day. I knew my friend Steve, the chiropractor. Shout out to Steve up at Chiropractic of Stewart. He came down. He's one of my good friends, and he came down to give me adjustments. So I knew he was coming Wednesday night. So I kind of was just, by like midday, I was just kind of looking forward. I'm like, okay, that's the point. When he gets here, he was going to work on me for like an hour, and then I'm going to try and run after that. So he did a good job. He adjusted me. He put the cold laser on my hip, because at that point my left hip felt like it was like coming out of the socket almost. Like it was, I would run and I could feel it was hitting my sciatic or something. It just was very uncomfortable. So he kind of popped it back in, hit it with some cold laser and also the infrared laser. He switched it over to infrared, and that's the first time I've ever used that in a situation where like I needed to like actively get rid of inflammation, and it went away. It was the strangest thing. Like he was like, okay, where's the pain? I would touch it. I could feel the pain, and then he would sit it on there for 10 or 15 minutes. He would say, okay, show me where you hurt, and I would feel, and I'm like, it's not hurting anywhere anymore. I'm like, that shit's legit. It's legit.
It is. Like we've come a long way.
Yeah,
in the whole area.
It's crazy. So he had the laser on there. He had the laser on my brain. He really did it up. So shout out to Steve for taking time. He was coming all the way from I think Fort Pierce. So he drove like almost 4 hours round trip to come down there. So I really appreciate that, Steve. And then that night I was able to kind of run a little bit.
That was Wednesday night?
That was Wednesday, and he left around I think 7 or 8.
Yeah, he was there for a while.
Yeah, he was there for a minute. Because that's when my son came back, and that's when my wife was there. So then when everybody left, I popped 2 ibuprofen, a couple caffeine pills, and started trucking. So Wednesday night, I remember around kind of like this, maybe a little bit later, because I stopped running up, I think, a little earlier that night, but it was around 11 or something. And this is kind of when people are starting to warm up to each other, as far as everybody's out there struggling. So it's like you'll stop beside somebody and just start shooting the shit. So that was the night that I started talking with Jason. Shout out to Jason. He's and we ended up talking for probably an hour and a half.
Can we cut now and then will you be able to edit if we cut now?
Yeah.
And okay.
What we gotta do?
No, I'd say let's cut now, because you got to cut anyway halfway through. Mm-mm. Well, I thought you said
at 49 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we still got 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's
that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we could.
Okay.
If not, it's a podcast.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the night that I ran across Jason. Jason Lester. Shout out to Jason, man. So that was the night.
Huge shout out to Jason.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, for real. And I've been staying in touch with him, man. He's got such an inspirational story. I'm definitely going to get him on a podcast here, so I won't blow his whole story up. But I do remember talking to him for almost 2 hours that night, and remembering, after we had got done, I think it was Wednesday night. So we talked for hour and a half. He shared his whole story with me, which I'll save that for the podcast, which is an amazing, inspiring story.
Is he going to come on?
Yeah, he'll definitely come on. Yeah. And then I was sharing my story with him, and it's kind of funny because I don't mind to share my story, and I think, it's kind of like the humble thing. I don't feel like my story's special. You know, I was a drug addict. Now I'm not. I'm clean, and I feel like there's so many people. So that's not. It's kind of like, woo, it's just another recovering addict. But when I look on the other side, that it can really help people.
It can.
So you know, I shared my story with him, and he was super interested in it. It kind of inspired him, and seeing that the guy that has achieved as much as he has, that was so interested in my story, it was kind of like, it's people get inspired by any story. So I just need to I need to share that more. So anyways, I remember going back. We talked for a couple hours. We went back to where the RV was, to the ice bath, because I'm like, come check out my setup, man. I got like the whole shindig. I got the Theragun. Yeah. I got the ice bath. So he came over there, and he his little vagina wouldn't let him get into the ice bath.
That's okay.
He got his shins in there.
That's okay.
But
he's still
it's
a
all
tough
good.
dude.
Yeah, he's super tough. But I remember at the end of that night, I'm like, this is like kind of the reason why I do the races, because regardless of like how I was feeling there, you meet these connections with these guys, and you just kind of like feel like a brotherhood, almost. Yeah. You're out there just kind of suffering together. Although you've only been out there for a few days, it feels like, oh man, it's like, it's like a connection. It was really, it was a good conversation that we had. So that wrapped up Wednesday night. It's kind of same thing. I think I went to bed around like 11, and same thing. I woke up around probably 5 or 6. So that was like my routine in the morning. I would wake up, stretch out, and then just make some coffee, and then just do a few laps, kind of walk it out, and kind of feel how everything's feeling, which by then it was pretty rough. So that brings us to Thursday morning. By then, Thursday, so I had walked majority of the day Wednesday. By Thursday, I was able to start jogging again. So hindsight, I'm glad I took Wednesday to kind of just reset and kind of gear down, because I think if I would have pushed it too hard, I would have just really been shut out of luck the rest of the week.
Because we did that last year.
Yeah,
and that's on me.
Yeah,
so, yeah. Last year,
no. But that's the thing that I'm learning about these races, man. It's like, and I kind of had to learn it through this race even more, because it's like a double-edged sword for me. So when I'm training, I can put on music, no music, but you have like a distance you're running, and you can go to a space, and you can get motivated, and you can almost feel like the dopamine rush, and you're like, okay, I'm going to crush this, and your workout's done, and you got all jacked, you feel good. But that doesn't work on a 6-day race, because you can do that. You can do that so many times, and you're like, we still got 4 more days. It's like getting jacked like that is the wrong way to approach these races, and it's almost like it's shifting gears, because it's like you want to put on David Goggins' book or whatever and just like go balls to the walls, but it's like you do that, and then you realize like, I got like 80 more hours.
Yeah, unless you train like that.
Right.
Yeah, for every month you ran a 6-day.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like and then maybe.
Then maybe, yeah. So it was like a different thing to kind of like gear down to like not get so motivated jack for short periods, because I noticed that day one I would get a good song or something, then you realize you're running 10-minute miles, and you're like, that's probably not good. You're gonna feel that in 3 more days, dude.
Yeah, but you gotta balance that with like the fact that at the end you don't want to feel like you left anything out there. Like you wanna give it your all. So it's such a middle of the ground. Like finding that sweet spot is, I can't imagine. Sure. And I want to ask you that later, like, because I want to do the 3-day race, and I want you to. Yeah. I need some advice.
Sure, for sure. Well, you got a good experience by just coming and watching this.
Yeah,
time.
No,
like you got a lot of
wrap your head around it.
A lot of insight from it. Yeah. So that was Thursday. I was able to get back in it, and then that's when you guys came back down. So you guys did you come back down Wednesday night? I think no.
I think it was Thursday. No, it's Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah. So that's when you came back down Thursday night, and then so it wasn't anything highlightable really on Thursday. It was just really just getting through the day.
Yep.
By then, I think I had hit around like 180-ish, 160 miles, I think, somewhere around there. And then, so leading into Friday, still, at that point, it was just about getting through the day. It was like, I remember thinking I think it was like Wednesday or Thursday, it's like you go through so many highs and lows. I remember just walking in the morning, just like, no really energy, not so much like motivation. Like I couldn't put on a good song to get going. It was kind of just like blah, like. But like I knew that going in, like this, like I knew there was going to be times like that. So it's just one of those things. Like you just keep moving. Maybe eventually you'll talk with somebody, and it kind of just takes your mind off of it. Or what I learned too is just go sit down. Just like instead of hobbling around like with a broke leg, like just go sit down. just rest because, like Mike, the timing guy at the beginning said, like, if you feel like you're having a bad day or something, just take a few hours and just go, like, just chill, like, just relax and stretch. So it was a balancing act of that. So towards the end of the week, it was more of like run a couple miles, go use the foam roller, go use the ice bath. I had the compression boots, go use those, and it would buy me like a few more hours of running. So it was kind of like figuring out what was working. So like by the end of the week, Thursday, Friday, it was really like that. It was just kind of almost like an interval type. So I would go run for maybe a few hours at tops, then come back and kind of rest. So I was kind of just figuring it out at that point. By the end of the week, it was like everybody was pretty friendly. Everybody was, we had the entertainment section for sure over at our area. So everybody was coming and hanging out. Although we weren't trying to pull people over there, we just had, we had a good setup. So it kind of worked out. So that kind of brings us to Friday night, which still wasn't anything, nothing highlightable. No. As far as like food, I kind of forgot about food throughout the week, but for breakfasts, like at the beginning of the week, I told Paul, we're missing eggs because I was eating eggs in my training all the way up. I still like eggs, but you bought 4 cartons. We didn't touch one. Yep. Not one egg. We brought them all home. Yeah. So McDonald's is our friend. As much as I like diss that place and hate that place, and the food's such shit. Man, 150 miles in, those sausage biscuits, hash browns, golly, they were good, man. That junk ass food was delicious. So that was a breakfast for a couple of the mornings, and
there's
then
a reason a lot of people eat it.
Yeah, exactly.
And we had pizza Friday night.
Ooh, we had pizza 2 nights.
2 nights, yeah.
Yeah, we had the meat lovers pizza, and I was worried about that, just all the grease. I thought it might tear up my stomach, but I think I was just like a power plant at that point. I was just whatever I'm putting in, I'm just burning, baby. Yeah. And then that leads us up to Friday night. Jimmy, you came down. Paul's down. Jimmy, you're running this 24-hour event, which starts Saturday morning.
Yep.
So tell me what your mindset is. So Jimmy came down last year with me when I did the 24-hour event, came down to pace me for a couple hours. So you got a little bit of touch with it, a little bit of taste of it. So tell me what you thought. Leading up to, what was your mindset? Were you nervous? Were you worried?
Well, no. I mean, the thing is that, like going down there, I told my wife, I said, look, I'm going down there to support Alex. Now, I do have some goals, some things that I want to achieve. But for the most part, when I found myself kind of allowing me to get in my own head, I kept reminding myself of what was the goal. The goal was to feed families in South Florida. And that allowed me to kind of release that and not just be so focused on me and what I was doing. And how can I support you? And what can I do? So once I started running, then I was able to kind of then be a little selfish and kind of do my thing. But the lead up, I really wanted to make sure that this was, I don't want to say this is just your event, but I think Paul and I both felt that it was an admirable venture, and you were doing a 6-day, and although I was there to support you and do the 24-hour, I really wanted to make sure, at the end of the day, even if I didn't run my 24, if you had a successful event and a lot of money was raised and people were fed, then that was great.
It was a win-win,
And then, of course, once I got out there and started, getting around the track and got those competitive juices flowing, then I could focus on me.
Sure. Yeah, that was the thing I forgot to mention. Kind of like halfway through the week, so I think it might have been Wednesday because that was, I think, probably the toughest days when I walked all the day. But I hadn't been looking at the donation page, and I had taken a look on it Wednesday, and I noticed there was like an extra $1,000 raised from when I had looked at it maybe before the race started up until then. So that kind of gave me like like you're saying, it solidified it for me. It's like, I'm not out here for myself. I'm out here for a bigger cause. I'm just per se the vessel of doing this, and
that's the thing. I mean, and that's why I'm proud of you, because so I got to see this kind of come to fruition. Where we have a lot of people come into our lives that talk about what they're gonna do, and they talk and they talk and they talk. And since I've known you, there's 2 things that you wanted to do that were very important to you. One was starting a podcast.
Here we are.
The other one was doing this race. So regardless of what the end result was, sometimes just the execution, just the start of that, and honoring your word, you win.
Yeah.
Right there, you win. And that's so tough for people these days, that they're afraid that well, what if I fail, or what if it doesn't succeed, or what if I don't hit the 500,000? But 70,000 people got fed.
Yeah.
So you shoot for that big goal, and you're still going to accomplish something, and you said you were going to do something and you did it, and that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, for sure. That's that's why everybody, like, leading up to it, everybody was like, "Oh, you're trying to raise $70,000? Like, that's a huge number." I'm like, well, yeah, if I put it at like 5,000 and I hit 5,000, it's probably going to stop there. And that was kind of the number I was thinking at the beginning, like just think it's small, and then it kind of went up. Yeah. So I think by doing that, was able to get a couple more. I think it was close to like $7,700 or something. So I feel like if I would have set it for the standard 2,500, 5,000, would have hit that, and goal accomplished, blah blah blah. Yeah. So that kind of got me through. That definitely got me through half the week. It was kind of cool too. I think halfway through as well, Andre, the race director, had posted a few pictures on the Instagram page, and I was looking at what he had posted, and somebody was commented on my picture because I was pointing at my shirt that I had made, that feeding 500,000 people on Thanksgiving, and the people were like, "Oh, I'm listening to a podcast about him right now." So I'm just like, "Oh, that's cool, awesome, man." It's like you're saying, like the whole point of this is to kind of inspire others to do, help other people and to be heard. So it's like, getting kind of like double whammy there. So it was a good feeling for sure. Trying to be humble about it while I was out there, but it was good. Got me through the hardest day for sure.
And it will. I mean, like, no soldier has died on the battlefield for a paycheck. Like we always, as humans, we're always trying to accomplish something that means more than just ourselves.
Yeah.
And there are people that are selfish, and some will succeed, but for the most part, we want to make sure that ripple effect goes out further than just our household. We want to make sure that we're causing effect in the community and helping others, and that drives you. It pushes you, especially in those moments in day 6.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. So that brings us to Saturday. All right, so get back into yours, because I'm curious I know you're there to support me. You're doing your thing. You did have your goals though. So how'd you feel like getting going?
Well, the night before was actually pretty awesome because coming from, I was able to have a little moment to reflect, and knowing that in 2003 I wasn't supposed to walk again. So as I'm kind of setting up my race, and for me, as a numbers person, I break everything down very small. I used to think in my younger life that I wasn't smart enough. So I was like, okay, so these people are very smart. So I'm gonna break it down to very, very small because I think I can accomplish that. Now that I've gotten older, I realize that was just being insecure. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't still do that. And when I break something that's very large down to very small, I'm able to obtain, step by step. So I broke down every hour of the race.
No, you had your whole notebook, man.
And I did. I kept going to it. And that was my security blanket.
Yeah.
So for me to do that, it was able to keep me on track. But I did start it a little quick because that competitive nature kind of picked up. And
those juices flowing.
I did. There was a guy, Mario, who, by the way, he finished third and did amazing. He was booking it, and he had red shoes. So I'm like, okay, I can stay behind this guy and just stick with him. So I did definitely logged in more miles the first. I remember
hearing you. It was like hour 2, and you're like, I'm gonna get him. Like, slow down.
My son showed up and goes, "There's a guy with the red shoes," because I already told them about it. But that's that's human nature.
Sure.
That we want to compete, not compare, because he was in much better shape than I was. I didn't train as much as him, so I can still give him words of encouragement as he's running by, but still compete with him.
Sure.
I think sometimes in life that we look at the person in the bigger house and we think that because they've accomplished this, that it takes away from our piece. It doesn't. Mm-mm. There's enough to go around.
Sure.
You can look at that person and have admiration and love what they've done, and compete with them still. But anyway, it was. By probably about 7-8 hours in, I was able to kind of settle into my game plan. Yeah. So I was able at least to get a little bit of a head start. And obviously, having the two of you there, two things that really impact me. One is words of affirmation, which you were giving me the whole time. I love your energy. I love your energy. Well, what do you think when you tell someone that? What are they going to continue to carry? Energy.
For sure.
You adopt it. It becomes part of your identity. So through the whole race, I've got energy. I've got energy. That and I don't like when people say I can't do something. So for the 2 weeks leading up to it, everyone's like, "You're going to run 50-something miles." And when I really broke it down, I'm like, it's really not that much. It's just I need to stay out there for a very long time. So the more and more people said, "Wow, if you do that, I'll be impressed." Because you haven't trained and you don't look like you should be able to do that. So the combination of a positive, of words of affirmation, of someone saying, "Hey, you've got great energy. I love it. You're out there. I can see you're focused." And then that little voice of someone saying, yeah, but can you really do it? So it was
Sure.
being able to pull from both of those was huge.
And you
Especially-
didn't train.
No, at
No.
all.
That's
I
amazing.
didn't tell you that lead up to it.
I could tell.
Could you?
Just from the way you were talking, because you were saying like 6 weeks before, like I need somebody to kind of just, hey,
Yeah.
did you run today? Did you run this? I started, and I'm like, yep.
And I wasn't responding. So my wife, the 2 weeks leading up to it, I ran 2 miles a day for the 2 weeks leading up to it. She goes, have you run more than 5 miles? I'm like, yeah, in 3 days. She goes, no, at one time. Well, yeah, since you asked that.
Yeah. Well, then you mess your hand up, so it's hard for you to get up there.
but that was 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's no excuse there.
Yeah.
I mean, there was about 3 weeks where I couldn't run. But it really came down to, and I think that anyone who has a goal or something they want to accomplish, you got to make it public. I told my team at the office what I was going to do, what my goals were. I told my kids. I committed to you guys. So when you're out there and it's 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock, and you're thinking about all the people that you said, hey, I'm going to run 2 marathons, that's why it's a big deal. I mean, like as humans, like we really, when we put our goals out there and we make it public, I mean,
Hold you accountable.
We
for
want to
them.
hold accountable.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was a huge part of it, and I did that on purpose. I mean,
Sure.
I know enough. I got gray in my hair.
Yeah.
I know that's a tactic that I work really well around.
Yeah. Well, guys, if you haven't, no, Jimmy was our episode 2 podcast, so go back and listen to Jimmy's episode because he did break his back. It's a whole backstory. He wasn't almost able to walk again, went to compete in the Spartan obstacle course races, a whole great podcast, so go back and look at that. So that's, it's very inspiring to hear his kind of comeback story. But I did want to ask you, too, as far as that computer screen. So every lap, you see the leaderboard going by, and I didn't really feel this way. So we started 2 years ago doing the Spartan races. I did a few more of the ultras. This is kind of the only race that I think has like a computer screen, so you can see the leaderboard like every lap. And this is also just a lap; it's not a point to point. So did it get for me when I did this 24-hour race last year? It's the first time I felt like a competition, like a real competition, like inside. You know what I mean? Like you feel kind of like butterfly, like almost getting jacked, let's fucking do it, kind of. So did you ever, because I know you 2 hours in, I heard you saying, like, I'm going to get him. So is that, because with the Spartan races, you don't see the leaderboard until after, you don't know your position. You feel the kind of the same way at these races, because you probably walked an extra 2 miles back and forth to look at that stupid screen. So I know you were watching it, but do you feel that, like you're feeling like, oh, I'm chasing him down,
No. So after probably 5-6 hours, it had nothing to do with that.
Okay.
It had to do with me going back to my sheet.
Yeah.
So I'm very much a systems guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to go back to my sheet and write it in, and I need to know where I was at.
Yeah.
Because if I had to speed it up a little bit, because there's times where I sped it up. Like when I come run up to you the one time, you're like, dude, you're out of breath. You should not be out of breath. And I was.
I remember
behind.
you said that. He came in like huffing and puffing, and we're
I
like,
sprinted up.
what are
I
you doing?
sprinted up and he knows why. But anyway, so for me, it was more of once again calculating. Say, okay, I've got 24 hours. I need to execute X amount of miles for every 3-hour period. I had 3-hour periods.
Blocks, yeah.
Exactly. So I had 8 of them. So I had to make sure that within those 8-hour blocks, I had to, get so many miles. So that's really what I was doing. I was going back and making sure that as I could feel the fatigue with the amount of miles and my blocks, that I was on track. So that's why I was doing it. It had nothing to do at that point with competition, because at that point, I think what at 10 o'clock at night, there was one person I was beating, and I'm pretty sure they went home. So it had nothing to do with that.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think it was 9 out of 14, and it's only because at 3 in the morning I was out there listening to old school rap and just doing my laps.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite time to run too. Is like ended up sleeping majority of the race at that time, but I like almost from that side of looking at that stupid screen, but like when you're out there so late, there's nobody else out there, so you see your name kind of start itching up the leaderboard. You're like, all right, here we go, we're gonna turn it on. But
yeah.
I realized
Only to wake up to being crushed.
yeah, only to wake up 8 hours later I was sleeping. You're like, oh no, I'm back down here again.
Yeah, but you and I are very different because and we've said this several times, and you can add to it, is that you are very much like many of the people that are out there, where you kind of want to do your thing, and there's a certain amount of focus, there's a certain amount of just confidence in that I don't need, like, support me, and you were very, just thankful of us being there.
Yeah.
When you were out there, we knew you wanted to do your thing.
Sure.
I am the exact.
Yeah.
I was talking and hanging out, and
Yep.
and people like one guy was doing the Miyagi, I'm like, sweep the foot, you know, and it's like 4 in the morning, and he's like, how is this guy, what is he doing? And but for me, I feed off that.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I mean, that's a great thing about anytime that we push ourselves in life, that you don't have to emulate yourself from every person around you. You can still pick from a ton of stuff that you gave me, but still be my own person and do, you know, my goals, my race, my, my execution the way that I want to do it.
Sure.
And that even translated into me helping you and like providing support. Like I didn't want to smother you because I'm a logistics guy like Jimmy, and I like to have everything planned out. And I'm, if anything, like I kind of tend to be the mother hen. So I'm like, I didn't want to hover, but you know, you're like chill AF. Like you're like, like, do you need anything? Do you need anything? And you're like, no, I'm good. So,
yeah, I know you're kind of like halfway through. I think when you had came down and you were like, no, he's just like a lone wolf out there.
Yeah.
He's just like doing his thing.
Yeah. I'm like Jimmy. I need the interaction. I need the people. And
yeah.
Well, and there was one time when you and I were around the table, and I'm like, we're probably making him nervous.
Yeah.
Like,
No, that was what was that? That was Thursday night, and I was laughing at you guys because you had just got there. He was already organizing, but then it looked like you were coming behind him and just moving.
Reorganizing.
So we had two white tables, and you guys were just like shifting shit.
But I asked him, I'm like, hey, okay, so what's your plan with this, and why do you have that there? And so 90% of the stuff I left, because I know he and I are very similar, and I said, well, I have an idea with this. He goes, I like that. So we're able to kind of feed off each other. So I don't mind leading from
we need to start a
behind
business
together. You guys are funny together. I remember laughing about that because it was like, you moved this over here, and then you came back with some duct tape, and you're like, tape that, and you moved this here.
It was great.
It was funny.
But it worked.
Yeah, it was good. And I almost forgot to shout out Jessica. She came down to pace me 2 nights. So she came up from Stewart. So she drove like a total of like 3 hours round trip too. And I felt bad because by the time she got down there both times to pace me, it was just a walkathon. It wasn't much pacing. It was more of just like to break up the minutia and just have like conversations. So shout out to Jessica. I really appreciate her coming down there and walking with me. But sorry I couldn't run much.
It's a long way. I mean, it's a big commitment, and I get it. People have, they've got their jobs, they've got their families. I know there's a lot of people that want to come down, and they just didn't have the ability to.
Sure.
So it is a big deal for her to come down. And
definitely.
Yeah, and shout out real quick to my wife who allowed me to go down there.
Yeah,
and not that I needed
out.
her permission or anything like that, but she was like your wife at home with the kids, and and
it's
hard.
a full job.
Yeah,
it's hard.
It was rough. So big shout out to Robin and
thank you.
And for my guys at my company for holding down the fort that week, so that I could be there, and it was cool to send them pictures of the progress because we helped support it and donated financially and whatnot. So I was kind of keeping them up to date on it, so it was awesome.
Hopefully inspire some of them.
Yeah, totally.
Drag them out there next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
they all think I'm crazy, but
and this is a thing where we don't know how far like we inspire. So at my partners meeting this last Wednesday, one of my partners, just in kind of we're done with the partners meeting and we're talking, and he's like, yeah, I'm getting back in the gym. Jim inspired me. Not one time has he ever made a comment. Not one time in any of the posts did he ever hit a like or a share. So you really just don't know, like how it will impact people or not.
Yep.
I know a majority of why you do what you do is you don't need that immediate feedback like some people do. That you have to get that like or you have to get that share. But to know that there are people that you may have never met before that are getting a little bit of inspiration. Maybe they're pushing through that day that was a little bit tough. Maybe the kids were tough that day, or maybe it's that one moment that says, you know what, I'm going to stop talking about it. I'm going to go down to the gym and I'm going to go ahead and sign up, and I'm going to do it. Because if they're doing he's doing it for 6 days. I can sign up for the gym.
Sure.
That's actually really funny that you say that, because now that I'm thinking about it, anytime like when I've done the 75 hard program or anything like that, any like physical challenge or race or anything like that, it's actually the majority of the people that reach out to message me to say, hey, you've inspired me, are actually not the ones that have liked the post. Like you'll get likes and comments and stuff like that, but it's always the people that are the most quiet on those posts that reach out very specifically on a DM and like, hey, I want to know more. I want to do this. Like it's cool. That's an interesting.
Well, I mean, I think some people, they scroll through and they see something quick and they're friends with you and they may hit like. You have those people on social media.
Yeah.
And then you have people that actually engage.
Yeah.
There's things where, I mean, I've had people in the past where I told them about my different parts of my life, and they're like, I didn't know that. I'm like, I don't put everything on social media, and so some of us that are inspired can be quiet, in some of those platforms.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was talking with Jason a lot when we were out there running. Is as far as like inspiration and inspiring people, and how you can kind of get caught up in the likes and the comments and people, the how many followers you have and stuff like that. But I remember listening to a podcast once with. His name's Charlie the Rocket. He was doing a podcast
Love
with Rich
Charlie.
Roll. Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, just worry about changing or inspiring one person in the day. Not a million people, not trying to get all the likes and all the follows, but just imagine you being face to face with one person and them looking you in the eye and say, you inspired me to do X.
Yeah.
And how powerful that is. And it's crazy, because when you think about it, it's like if you could actually just help one person a day, inspire one person, the ripple effects from that. I mean, it's crazy. I remember during this process, I was posting like a lot of my workouts and stuff, and somebody from high school I haven't talked to since high school, so it's been 20 plus years, reached out to me. He's a dad of two sons, but saying, I love your gym post you're doing. It's really inspirational. He knows I have 2 kids too. He's like, I'm just caught in the whole dad life. It's just kind of frustrated. Not, got the gut and blah 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 blah. You're inspiring. So, it just took. I think that was like really the only one throughout the whole training, but it was like enough to. I think I almost got emotional when I was reading it, because I'm like, man, it's like. It's just one person. It's like that could just go on for so far, and you don't even know, right?
And what you have to understand. So, like in politics, so if politicians know if one person calls in with a complaint or a comment that represents 10,000 voters, okay. If someone sends an email, it's 1,000. If someone writes a letter, they know that represents 100,000 voters, because there's 100,000 people that want to write a letter, but one person did.
Right.
So if someone
That's
reaches out
Yeah,
and they
that's
DM you, okay, I don't know what the numbers are, but if someone hits a like, that might represent 10 people. If someone makes a comment, that might represent 100. If someone DMs you and says, "Hey, you inspire me," like that takes a lot. That's like writing a letter.
Yeah.
Especially when you haven't spoken.
There's a
in
ton
so
of
long.
people
Yeah.
that felt that were inspired, that maybe didn't take the time to send that DM.
Sure.
And I think that what that reminds me of is like the whole master the mundane thing with Andy Frisella, because I think it's like focusing. We get so caught up in trying to make a huge impact and try to change the world, when all we have to do is change ourselves, change our families, and it ripples from there. So I think it all goes back to just focusing on the little things and just executing on those every day, whatever they are.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, I love John Maxwell. He says that I hope the people that know me the best respect me the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can sit on stage and you can have this great persona and put off this individual that you are, but then when you come off stage, the people that know you the best, do you mirror that?
Right.
So
many people don't. Yeah.
A lot don't.
Yeah.
And then we look at that and we go, oh, I could never do anything like that, so I just won't do anything at all. And then that's where they lose out on making small changes in their life to better themselves.
Sure.
Yeah, but what you're talking about as far as impacting people, I mean, I told you, I think I've told both of you the story. Out of all the years I've done races, I started, I competed, I would say 2006 through 2011, I competed in those races. I've attended since then. And my most memorable is the young kid with the heart surgery.
At the Spartan race.
Yeah, for me to pull him aside and just give him, whatever little bit of knowledge that I've accumulated, and tell him that, and give him a little bit of guidance, get in his ear, big hugs, a little bit of tears, have him meet my family, and just I left there. I'm like, this is why I was meant to be here.
What was the backstory on that for those that don't know?
So it's the end of the beast, and so I was running with another guy, and we were actually finishing up. We're about 5 hours in, and I actually failed the last obstacle before going through. You're literally 10 minutes away. And the guy was going to wait for me. I said, no, just go. You finish it up. So I did my burpees, and as I come running up, this young guy, he's like crying as he's walking up to one of the burpee walls. I said, hey man, what's going on? Let's finish strong. You're right there. He goes, it's not about that. I said, well, let's talk while we finish strong. As we're going up, he tells me about he had this huge scar, and his doctor, he had 2 open heart surgeries, and his doctor 3 weeks prior told him, this is your last race. You're not doing any more. You can't. And he goes, what am I going to do? Like, this is my life. So we came down the backside. I go, so what's your plan? So this was your life. It's not anymore. I said that, I had major surgery, there's things I'm not going to be able to do anymore. So fucking what? I said, when we leave here today, you need to find out what's your next thing. And he goes, well, what is it? I'm like, I don't know, brother, but you're going to have to find it. And I said, but we're going to finish strong. So we jumped the fire. We did all that. I had him, he met my family, and I went over and got in his ear again. I said, dude, look, I was put here for a reason. To tell you this, hey, you had a great run. In life, it throws you different, curveballs. You need to pivot. When you leave here today, take this moment, be very proud of it. Tomorrow, when you wake up, find the next thing you have to go after. Talk to your doctor, figure out what it is. And if you're like me, I tell you are, you gotta have something you're shooting for. And he's like, thank you, sir, which I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. He was probably mid-20s, and I told my wife, I said that out of all the races I've done, the things I've accomplished, running with Wounded Warriors, which was amazing. That's probably my second, favorite story. I really loved being there for that one person. And who knows? I mean, I know how I am, and the little words and little impacts that people have made on me that I still remember this day from when I was 10. I would think that over the years, as he's trying to figure out what's going to be his next thing that he's going to accomplish, or he's going to try to overcome, or his next challenge, that my words are in his ear. So it was an amazing moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's what these are all about. It's like, especially that's why I keep coming back to these longer races, because I feel like just the more with, especially with COVID, it's all weird, but just being able to just like share moments like that with other people, whether it's during a race or whether it's during a podcast, or as long as it's not through the fucking phone, you know what I mean? Like the more and more as I grow in personal development and grow into being an older man, whatever, I like when I have those experiences, like when I had this race, spending time with you guys, spending time with the other racers there, like that's what it's about, man. It's like the feeling, like I feel it inside, like whatever that feeling is. It's like you just feel, it's like this is what it's fucking about. Like it's not about let me go ride a post or let me go shopping or let me drive the best car. It's like that connection you get. It's like I'm getting goosebumps right now. It's like that's the right feeling. Like that something about it is just like pulls you closer. So that's what brings me back, and I'm already projecting next year as far as just doing more races and helping other people. But for me personally, that's the chord that's striking in my heart. It's like just to be able to share experiences with other people in person, be able to share your story back and forth, and to inspire other people or them to inspire you. Like, man, that's a home run.
But there's something about it. So you look at so like a platoon. They come back from overseas, and they shared a moment where they pushed each other to the limits. And they were there for each other. So you have this physical, push and the emotion involved. Now look, I mean, like when, that's a sidetrack, but when the CrossFit first came out, people were like, it's a cult. Well, what do you expect?
You're going to war.
Here's a bunch of humans that are pushing each other to the freaking limit until the point where they're laid out and sweaty, and then they get to rejoice with each other.
Yeah. I was literally, right before you started telling that story, I was literally going to say, like, you go to war. Yeah. Like, it's a, and I've never been in war or seen battle or anything, like, but that's the closest thing, because you're pushing your limits and you're sharing that emotional and physical connection. Like, that's as close to war as, I mean, I want to get personally, but like I can imagine, like that's that connection,
the brotherhood,
oh my
sisterhood,
gosh,
whatever. Yeah,
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, you have a lot of veterans, that when they come back, get into these races, get into that, because it's the exact same feeling. Is that we know as humans. I mean, when someone has regret. I mean, regret, to just boil it down, is that when you knew you could do something and you didn't. So, and sometimes you need someone to push you or to grab you up when you're falling down. And I think that, in many different sports and combat, if you will, that there are moments when you knew you could push a little bit more. So when that one guy or that one woman grabs you and helps you up and allows you to accomplish what you're meant to accomplish, I mean, you're going to have a bond. I mean, for them to be able to help you to achieve the things that you're able to achieve, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's simple.
I think it's primal, too. It's what we did way back when.
So let's settle up on the last day.
That connection.
So your 24-hour event.
That's strong
Felt
shit.
strong.
All right, well, so let's settle up on the last day, because we still didn't finish. So so your 24-hour event, felt strong. You had your game plan, 3 8-hour blocks. What time did you go to sleep? You took a quick nap, right?
I slept for an hour. I mean, I was down for probably about 2.5 hours, but I slept for about an hour. I was a little sore, chafing a little bit. So Todd, who you spoke to, I caught him as he was running around. I said, "Hey, man, just this is what I'm dealing with. What should I do?" And he goes, "I know you don't want to take time away, but you should go take a shower." So went, took a shower, put on some good music, and then I was able to get, at least back out there and pushing. And as Paul had mentioned, my walk game is pretty fierce. Yeah, my wife doesn't like it because I'm like that all the time. My team,
I'm a fast walker, and I literally, my slow jog, I had a slow jog to keep up with your fast walk. Like,
It doesn't make sense because you're shorter. It's like you wouldn't think your stride would be like that, but
no, he's on a mission.
Yeah. So, but and the thing is that, and I fed off all the other people out there. I mean, I just love, and we talked about going down there where you asked, "Are you a people pleaser?" And I said, "I don't know if I am." And then, it's funny, at 42 years old, you think you kind of know yourself. And then as I started thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I am. Because out there, there was a kid, he was broke.
Yeah.
And he just would not come off the track. And I kept telling him. And I think that so many times in life, and I don't know if it's a man thing. It shouldn't be. I think that women are a little bit more easy to give their emotions and speak freely. I said, "Dude, you're inspiring me." I said, I can see you're broke. I said, "But you're inspiring me." As I walked past him very fast, because I still had my game plan. But and people would come up and I'd say, "Man, you're doing amazing," and just being completely genuine. So yeah, it was. Once I got up that morning and just kept pushing, and once again, I knew what my goal was, and I think that because I put in so many hours on the front end, I kind of laxed a little bit on the back end, knowing, so my ticket to the bank was 2 marathons, but my goal was to push 60, 65. So to do it again, I definitely left a little bit on the track.
I feel the same. I feel like I left like a marathon out there. If looking back, I would have done less miles the first day, blah blah blah. But even the same thing. So the last night, everybody was talking all week like we're gonna ramp it up Saturday night, just everybody's just gonna run. But I was so broken, I was so sore at that point. I ended up getting I think like 7 hours of sleep the last night. But I felt the same. Like once I got up like 5 or 6 in that morning. I was just out of it. So I think I ended up stopping like maybe like an hour early, which is looking back is kind of probably the better thing to do because we started breaking down and then we got hit with that crazy rain. So if I would have waited to the end, it might not have been it'd been a little rougher. But like you said, looking back, that was next year definitely taking it to the very end. But I felt like I might have left like 30%.
Taking it to the end, we need somebody to pack up for us and drive us back. Because both of you drove your cars back after that. I was tired, and I didn't do half of it.
I was good, and that's why I felt like that's why I left a lot on the track because I was good.
Yeah.
So next time I want to run a lot more.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. The reason that I pushed through the night is that I kept getting reminded by we don't know how many springs we're gonna have. Everyone thinks, okay, well, after spring, we have summer, we have all these seasons. We don't know. We just really don't. Sometimes the winters are long, sometimes they're short. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, look, the weather's good. The moon is out. You don't know what the morning's going to bring. So we can't just push off to tomorrow.
Right.
We have no clue what's going to happen. Look at this year. We all said, 2020 is going to be a phenomenal year. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So we just don't know. So if right now, if your energy is up, if the environment is good, and you can push through and you can make something happen, then do it. Don't procrastinate. So that's why I was able to push through. So then when the storm started to come and it started to drizzle, I was giving myself that was the first time I gave myself a little bit of a pat on the back. Said, look, you saw this coming. This could have happened. Good for you. You pushed through the night because I kept saying, hey, you only have 12 miles. Why don't we just take a little bit? I'm like, hey, weather's good. We have to make sure that when the environment is allowing us to succeed, then you need to stay and you need to put in the work.
Yeah, because we were expecting the rain to come Saturday early, and we were waiting. It came right when we were breaking down.
Yeah.
Hit us
Well, it
hard.
started drizzle right before daybreak, and it rained a little bit, but not too much. So
Yeah.
that was a little bit of a reminder for me that We have no clue. Because at the end of the day, Mother Nature, she's
Especially
going to
here in
do what she
Florida.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was nice.
Yeah, it pops up so fast.
Yeah, so like,
And it was nice. The weather was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like Monday, Tuesday was kind of hot and humid, but by Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it was super
awesome.
windy but cool.
Yeah.
So it was actually really nice. I remember sitting back in those first time I used the zero gravity chairs, which are clutch.
Yeah.
Definitely gonna have to get my own set of those. But
Yeah.
I remember the wind was blowing and it was like midday, but it was covered by the shade in the trees, and I was just laying back in the chair, and I was like, man, this is nice. Like, especially like no kids screaming in your ear and stuff. I'm like, oh man, it's been years since I felt like this.
and I could tell that, when the kids were there.
She's one of the most supportive.
I love you, because she's one of the most supportive people I know. And I said, this is just, this is probably not the right place for them right now.
Yeah.
Because look, 9 and 7, and your kids too, your sons, they're soaking all in. They're running around. It's an experience for them.
Sure.
They're not at that level where they understand, hey, well, Dad just needs some time to kind of get his mind wrapped around the next 2 days.
Yeah.
So it's not their fault.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. My wife, because I remember that was Saturday. So my wife was planning on coming down with a couple of friends, a couple that we know. So 2 people plus her plus my son and daughter, and they were going to come down and play with your guys' kids.
Yep.
But your guys' kids got there first.
I could just see.
I could
You have to experience it.
I could just see.
I'm like,
I couldn't be a dad at that point. 6 days in, I'm like, I text my wife. I'm like, I love you. Thank you for like wanting to come down and support me, but I can't. Because same thing, my son wants to run with me. He wants, and I don't want to, like we were talking earlier. Like I just don't want to like
He wants to
snap
be
on
with you.
him or like be mean to him for no reason. He just wants to be out there with Dad. But
I would have done the same thing.
I'm like, no, I can't be a dad right now. This is not the time. So like a little heads up. Now we know. All right, so Paul, what about you? What is your experience of this whole week, man? So this is your like getting into it. So first, you did awesome as a crew since you'd never even done that before.
Thank you.
Huge shout out to that, man. It's like you were saying, you're definitely mother hen, but in the best way possible. So you're definitely gonna be prepared for your own race. So,
Yeah.
So what was your whole experience about this thing?
Yeah, it was exciting to see. My goal, like Jimmy said, was just to kind of go down there and support you and make sure that you have what you need through the week and whatnot. But it was really cool to see just you get in the mindset and just both of you just work through the work that you had to put in on that. Even the 24-hour race, it was a lot. So. Definitely inspired me. I want to do the 3-day race next year. I don't think I'm ready for the 6th day. I'll start off small, but I definitely want to go a little more than 24 hours. So,
Well, even you, was it kind of a wake-up call because you ran over 50 miles? Like just
Yeah.
run around? So was
Yeah.
that kind of like,
Yeah.
was that like a reminder, like to get a little bit more?
yeah, no, it was good to get out there because I was usually. So I started running a couple years ago. And I'm a heavier guy, so my heart rate is always really high, and I realize that I'm like overtraining and running the wrong way, and that's just like for whatever reason I've always done a lot of different things, but I've never like mastered certain things or mastered really anything because I've done so many different things. So my goal now in life is to focus really like. Choose a couple things and get really, really good at them. And running, I want to do that. So I realized, like, I've been running, and even like last year I was running, and I would just get out and just run. But there were times where I get my heart rate up to like 190. Like, that's not good. You shouldn't be training like that. So
Sure. Occasionally, but
Yeah.
specifically for that.
yeah, exactly. So when I'm starting to like learn about keeping your heart rate in certain zones and things like that and pacing, I was just getting out there to kick my own ass basically because I'm overweight and I need to lose weight. So I'm just going to run as hard and fast as I can and as much heat as possible to sweat it all out. So anyway, I did get out there and ran with you guys and then ran on my own and did 50 miles through the course of the week, and definitely realized I'm like, man, I could definitely do this. It'll be a struggle, and I'm hoping I've actually lost between 20 and 30 pounds over the last year or so. I'm starting to gain it back over the holidays and whatnot, but I'm going to get back on track here soon. So hopefully by the time I get back out there, I'm going to be probably 15 plus pounds even lighter than I am now. So, but I'm working towards that and doing strength weightlifting and whatnot. So I'm really glad because I do like to prepare and I am a logistics guy. So I was glad to go there as a spectator first to see what the deal is. And now I'm like, I can be super prepared and I can write out my own goals and, schedule and stuff like that. So I'm really excited about it. And I want to do something bigger next year with you. So like, I want to collaborate, and we got to figure out what that is. But like, let's set a bigger goal and just let's get that $70,000. We can definitely do that. So.
Oh yeah. I've been racking my brain because I work with Feeding South Florida this year for the charity, and although they do an awesome job, and I think they're ranked like #1 for Southern Florida feeding, I wasn't all too happy as far as their communication, their response on social media. I won't be using them again, although they do a great job of feeding people. Thank goodness for that. But just like zero lack of sharing my race, zero lack of communication. They ignored a lot of my emails. So if you're listening.
That is kind of a bummer.
And they might be like an old school type company too.
Well, no, because they were
sharing
sharing other people's shit on, like they said their Instagram's designated for showing where food banks are. I get it, that's where their posts are, but then they're sharing stories of other people donating. Oh, thanks so and so, thanks so and so. I'm like, well, all right. Don't want to share my shit, but it's weird. It's like it's not like I'm collecting the money and giving it to you, and there's a chance I can take it. It's like they're donating to your bank account. Yeah. So whatever. Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna look for a different strategy next year, but we're definitely gonna collab and
we'll make a huge impact.
we'll make it. Oh yeah, it's gonna.
And we're gonna have at least 3 RVs.
For sure. It's gonna be legit. All right, guys. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up. I just want to thank you guys again for all the support. Without you guys, it probably wouldn't have happened. So I do really appreciate it.
Well, it would have.
Yeah, I mean, it would have, but it was. We're going back because of that. Because of the way we did it. So make it like an annual thing. It was really fun.
Yeah. No. Do you have any? As we close, do you have any advice for me as far as running and training?
Oh yeah, I think since we're gonna do it next year, we need to like set up, since we live like a rock away from each other.
More than 2 miles.
You should definitely.
For sure.
And I need to get myself used to cold plunges too.
Oh yeah, you gotta sign up for the membership at the gym. Come on over.
I gotta
baby.
do it.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely. You were mentioning like the zone training for heart rate and stuff. That was all new for me when I signed up for the coach with Iron Cowboy and started running. That was all a new concept for me.
And even like stride, where your feet land and
Your cadence and all that. Yeah.
I want to dial that in because again, I've spent so much time in my life doing a lot of different things, and I want to get really, really good at something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would say I guess the biggest advice for a 3-day event is what I'm going to definitely do training for next year is multiple runs in the day. So instead of just like a long run Friday, a long run Saturday, like 10 miles Friday morning, 5 miles Friday night, like 10 miles Saturday morning, 5 miles, because I think that time on your feet, although you do a long run, I think it would have benefited me to do like 20 miles before breakfast, 10 miles before bed, like just to have that consistent on your feet and having that feeling, because like I said, when I hit day one and I hit like 40, 50 miles, I'm like, this is just a different feeling.
Yeah,
like,
the stop go is much different.
Yeah, you got to kind of try to replicate that during training.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so you can be comfortable with it.
Cool. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, guys, so thank you. And guys, I appreciate you guys listening. Please go follow us on social media, Instagram or YouTube channel. Please subscribe so you can get notifications when we come up with our newest episode. And we will catch you guys later. Thanks again.